There is a quiet moment that comes for nearly everyone who has lived past a certain age. It might arrive while rising from a low chair, or during the first few steps after a long car ride, or simply when attempting to open a jar that once opened easily. In that moment, a question forms, not always spoken aloud, but felt somewhere beneath conscious thought. Is this simply what getting older feels like? Have I reached the point where decline is inevitable? These questions carry weight because they touch on something deeper than physical sensation. They touch on independence, on the ability to live life on your own terms, on the fear that one day the body will no longer cooperate with the life you wish to lead. What if the stiffness, the slowness, the gradual retreat from activities you once enjoyed? What if these experiences are not the inevitable architecture of aging, but something else entirely? What if the body is not simply wearing out, but responding to conditions that can be understood and, in some measure, addressed? This is not a question of reversing time or pretending that decades have not passed. It is a question of whether the gradual changes you notice are necessary changes. Whether the body's slow withdrawal from full function is a command or merely a communication. The answer to this question, supported by a growing body of observation and research, may surprise you. It may also change how you think about every meal you eat, every step you take, and every night of rest you allow yourself. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The architecture of longevity. Understanding how the body maintains itself across time. There is a question that eventually arrives in every thoughtful person's mind. Often sometime after the 50th birthday has passed, and the body begins communicating in a different language than it once did. The question is not simply about living longer, though that concern hovers in the background. The more pressing question, the one that arises when climbing stairs requires a moment of preparation or when mornings begin with a few seconds of stiffness before movement becomes fluid, is about how to live well within a body that has been in use for decades. This is not a question with a simple answer, nor is it a problem that can be solved by any single intervention. It is, rather, an invitation to understand something more fundamental about how human bodies are designed and what they require to continue functioning smoothly over time. Consider for a moment the remarkable fact that the body you inhabit today is not composed of the same material it was composed of 7 years ago. Cells have died and been replaced. Tissues have been broken down and rebuilt. The very structure of your bones has been remodeled through the constant activity of cells that build and cells that clear away old material. This continuous process of renewal happens without any conscious effort on your part, quietly and efficiently, for decade after decade. The body is not a static machine that slowly wears out. It is more like a garden that must be continually tended, a living system that rebuilds itself from the raw materials you provided. The question of healthy aging, then, becomes a question of what materials you are supplying for this ongoing process of renewal and what conditions you are creating for the cells that perform this work. When joints feel stiff, when muscles feel weaker than they once did, when recovery from activity takes longer than it used to, these experiences are not simply signs of inevitable decline. They are forms of communication from a body that is doing its best with whatever resources it has been given. Understanding this communication, learning to interpret what the body needs and provide it consistently, forms the foundation of any sensible approach to maintaining function across the years. The cellular economy. How the body allocates resources. Every day, the body performs an astonishing act of resource allocation. The food you eat, broken down into its simplest components, becomes a pool of raw materials that must be distributed among competing demands. Energy must be produced for immediate needs. Damaged proteins must be replaced. Immune cells must be manufactured. The lining of the digestive tract, which renews itself completely every few days, requires a constant supply of new cells. Hair and nails grow. Skin sheds and regenerates. All of these processes happen simultaneously, drawing from the same limited pool of nutrients. This cellular economy operates according to priorities that make biological sense. Essential functions, like maintaining the heartbeat and powering the brain, receive first claim on available resources. Repairs to tissues that are actively damaged or stressed come next. Long-term maintenance projects, like preserving the density of bones or the thickness of cartilage, receive what remains after more urgent needs are met. This prioritization system works well when resources are abundant, but when supplies are limited, long-term maintenance is the first category to be shortchanged. This explains something important about the way joints change with age. Cartilage, the smooth tissue that allows bones to glide past one another, turns over slowly compared to other tissues. Its cells, called chondrocyte, live for years or decades rather than days or weeks. The body, in its constant calculus of resource allocation, invests less in maintaining these long-lived structures when immediate demands press for attention. Over time, this underinvestment accumulates. Cartilage becomes thinner. Its surface becomes less perfectly smooth. The cushioning between bones diminishes, and the sensation of bone approaching bone begins to register as discomfort. The practical implication of this understanding is that providing the body with consistent, adequate resources allows it to attend to these long-term maintenance projects more effectively. When the raw materials for repair are reliably available, the body can afford to invest in structures that will serve you for years to come, rather than constantly diverting resources to patch immediate problems. The structural proteins, building and maintaining connective tissue. The human body contains many different types of proteins, each designed for specific purposes. Among the most important for physical function are the structural proteins that give tissues their strength and resilience. These proteins form the scaffolding that holds everything in place, the molecular framework upon which the body's architecture depends. Collagen is the most abundant of these structural proteins, accounting for about a third of all protein in the body. It forms the foundation of tendons, which connect muscle to bone. It provides the tensile strength of ligaments, which connect bone to bone and stabilize joints. It gives cartilage its ability to withstand compression and spring back into shape. It even provides the underlying structure of blood vessels, skin, and bones themselves. Collagen is, in a very real sense, what holds the body together. The production of collagen is a complex process requiring multiple nutrients working in coordination. The amino acids that form collagen's characteristic triple helix must be available in adequate amounts. Enzymes must modify these amino acids in specific ways to create the proper molecular configuration. Vitamins and minerals must be present to support these enzymatic reactions. Without any of these components, collagen production slows, and the collagen that is produced may be weaker and less organized than it should be. The decline in collagen production that accompanies aging is not simply a matter of the body losing its ability to make this protein. It is also a reflection of changing priorities and reduced investment in long-term maintenance. When the body detects that resources for collagen production are limited, it allocates what is available to the most critical structures first. Skin may show the effects of this reduced investment earlier than tendons or ligaments, not because skin is unimportant, but because the consequences of reduced collagen in skin are less immediately threatening to survival than reduced collagen in structures that prevent injury. This understanding suggests that maintaining adequate intake of the nutrients required for collagen production throughout life, rather than waiting until problems appear, may support the body's ability to continue investing in these structural tissues. The raw materials for collagen must be present consistently for the body to prioritize their use in long-term maintenance. The inflammation balance. When protection becomes problematic, inflammation is often spoken of as something to be avoided, as if it were entirely harmful. This represents a misunderstanding of a biological process that is essential for survival. Acute inflammation. The redness, swelling, and heat that surround a cut or a sprain is the body's way of containing damage, removing debris, and initiating repair. Without this response, minor injuries would become infected and would not heal properly. Inflammation is not the enemy. It is a necessary part of the body's maintenance system. The challenge arises when inflammation becomes chronic. When the inflammatory response activates not in response to obvious injury, but as a continuous low-grade presence throughout the body. This persistent inflammation differs from the acute variety in both its causes and its effects. It does not arise from a single injury that requires repair. It arises from a combination of factors including diet, stress, insufficient physical activity, and the gradual accumulation of cellular damage over time. Chronic inflammation affects joints in several ways. Inflammatory molecules called cytokines can directly damage cartilage cells, causing them to function less effectively or die. Inflammation can thicken the synovial membrane that lines joints, reducing its ability to produce lubricating fluid. Inflammatory processes can even stimulate the activity of cells that break down bone and cartilage, accelerating the very degradation that leads to joint pain and stiffness. The digestive system plays an important role in regulating inflammation throughout the body. The lining of the intestines serves as a barrier between the contents of the digestive tract and the internal environment. When this barrier functions well, it allows nutrients to pass through while keeping larger molecules and bacteria where they belong. When the barrier becomes compromised, a condition sometimes described as increased intestinal permeability, substances that should remain in the digestive tract can enter the bloodstream and trigger immune responses that contribute to inflammation. The community of bacteria living in the digestive tract influences the integrity of this barrier and the tone of the immune system. Beneficial bacteria produce compounds that strengthen the intestinal lining and help regulate immune responses. They compete with potentially harmful bacteria for resources and attachment sites. They even produce vitamins and other nutrients that the body can use. The balance of this bacterial community, shaped by diet and other factors, affects not only digestion but inflammatory processes throughout the body, including those occurring in joints. The muscle connection. Support systems for moving parts. Muscles surround joints like living braces, providing dynamic support that adapts to every movement. When leg muscles are strong, they absorb forces that would otherwise pass directly through knee and hip joints. When back muscles are well conditioned, they stabilize the spine and reduce stress on the discs between vertebrae. When muscles throughout the body function properly, they share the work of movement so that no single structure bears excessive load. The relationship between muscle strength and joint health becomes increasingly important with age because muscles are more responsive to intervention than other joint structures. Cartilage, once lost, cannot easily be restored. Bone density, once decreased, requires significant effort to rebuild. But muscle tissue responds reliably to the right signals. Even in later decades, muscles can grow stronger and more resilient when provided with adequate protein and appropriate physical demands. This capacity for muscle adaptation matters for joint health because stronger muscles protect joints in multiple ways. They absorb shock more effectively, reducing the force transmitted to cartilage and bone. They provide greater stability, decreasing the likelihood of injuries that damage ligaments or menisci. They enable more efficient movement patterns, reducing the grinding and compression that can accelerate wear. The protein requirements for maintaining muscle change with age. Younger bodies build muscle efficiently from moderate protein intake, but the aging body becomes somewhat resistant to the signals that stimulate muscle synthesis. This phenomenon, sometimes called anabolic resistance, means that older adults need more protein per meal to achieve the same muscle-building response that younger adults achieve with less. Distributing protein intake across the day, rather than consuming most protein at a single meal, may help overcome this resistance and support ongoing muscle maintenance. Protein quality also matters. Complete proteins, those containing all the amino acids the body cannot manufacture on its own, provide the most efficient support for muscle maintenance. Dairy proteins are particularly effective because they are absorbed relatively quickly and contain a favorable balance of amino acids. The amino acid leucine, abundant in dairy, appears to be especially important for triggering the cellular processes that build muscle. The lubrication system, keeping joints moving smoothly. Joints are not simply bone meeting bone with a thin layer of cartilage in between. They are sophisticated structures containing multiple tissues designed to work together. The synovial membrane lines the inner surface of the joint capsule and produces synovial fluid, a remarkable substance that both lubricates and nourishes the joint. This fluid contains hyaluronic acid, which gives it viscosity, and lubricin, a protein that reduces friction between surfaces. When joints move, synovial fluid is squeezed in and out of cartilage like water from a sponge. This movement delivers nutrients to cartilage cells, which have no direct blood supply, and removes waste products. It also maintains the fluid film that separates opposing cartilage surfaces, allowing them to glide past one another with minimal friction. Without adequate synovial fluid, movement becomes difficult and uncomfortable. The composition of synovial fluid can change with age and with inflammation. It may become thinner and less effective at lubricating. The cartilage it is meant to nourish may begin to dry out and become more brittle. These changes contribute to the sensation of stiffness, particularly after periods of inactivity, and to the grinding sensations that sometimes accompany movement. The fats circulating in the bloodstream influence the composition of synovial fluid because the synovial membrane uses these fats to produce its lubricating secretions. Omega-3 fatty acids, in particular, appear to support the production of higher quality synovial fluid. These fats, found abundantly in fish and in smaller amounts in certain plants, also reduce inflammatory processes in the synovial membrane itself, allowing it to function more effectively. The relationship between dietary fats and joint lubrication illustrates a broader principle. The body uses the materials provided to it, in the forms provided, to build and maintain its structures. When the diet supplies mostly saturated and omega-6 fats, these become the building blocks for cell membranes and secretions throughout the body. When the diet includes adequate omega-3 fats, these are incorporated instead. The composition of what you eat becomes the composition of your tissues. The mineral foundation. Bones as living structures. Bones appear solid and unchanging, but this appearance deceives. Beneath the hard exterior, bone tissue is constantly being remodeled by the coordinated action of cells that break down old bone and cells that build new bone. This remodeling serves multiple purposes. It allows bones to repair microscopic damage before it accumulates into fractures. It enables bones to adapt to changing mechanical demands, becoming denser where stress is applied and less dense where it is not. It also allows the body to use bones as a mineral reservoir, releasing calcium into the bloodstream when needed for other functions and storing excess calcium when supplies are abundant. With age, the balance of this remodeling process can shift. The cells that break down bone may become more active than the cells that build bone, leading to gradual loss of bone density. This process accelerates in women after menopause due to declining estrogen, which normally helps restrain bone breakdown. Men also lose bone density with age, though more gradually, due to declining testosterone and other factors. The health of bones directly affects joint function because joints are formed where bones meet. When the bone beneath cartilage weakens, it can no longer provide the same support. The cartilage may begin to deform under load. The joint may become misaligned. Bone spurs may form as the body attempts to stabilize the joint. These changes can cause pain and limit movement even when the cartilage itself remains relatively healthy. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in bone, but it is not the only nutrient bones require. Magnesium, phosphorus, and trace minerals all play roles in bone structure and metabolism. Vitamin D facilitates calcium absorption from the digestive tract and helps regulate the activity of bone-building cells. Vitamin K supports the incorporation of calcium into bone matrix. Protein provides the collagen framework upon which bone minerals are deposited. Bone health, like joint health, depends on multiple nutrients working together. The skeleton's role as a mineral reservoir means that dietary calcium intake matters not only for bone density, but for the body's ability to maintain proper calcium levels in blood and tissues. When dietary calcium is inadequate, the body draws calcium from bones to maintain blood levels, gradually depleting the skeletal reserve. This withdrawal occurs silently, without sensation, until bone density has declined enough to increase fracture risk. The digestive ecosystem, where nutrition begins, before any nutrient can support joint health or any other bodily function. It must first be absorbed through the digestive tract. The efficiency of this absorption depends on the health of the digestive lining and the community of microorganisms living within it. These factors, often overlooked in discussions of joint health, may be as important as the nutrients themselves. The digestive tract presents a paradox. It is technically outside the body, a tube passing through it, yet its contents constantly interact with the internal environment. The lining of this tube, a single layer of cells held together by tight junctions, must allow nutrients to pass through while keeping out bacteria, toxins, and undigested food particles that could trigger immune responses. This selective permeability is one of the body's most important protective functions. The bacteria living in the digestive tract influence this barrier function in multiple ways. Certain species produce short-chain fatty acids that nourish the cells lining the colon and strengthen their connections. Others produce compounds that stimulate the immune system in ways that reduce inappropriate inflammation. Still others compete with potentially harmful bacteria for resources and attachment sites, keeping pathogenic populations in check. The composition of this bacterial community changes with diet, medications, and age. Diets rich in diverse plant fibers tend to support more diverse and beneficial bacterial populations. Diets high in processed foods and low in fiber tend to reduce diversity and favor species associated with inflammation. Antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, can dramatically alter bacterial populations, reducing beneficial species and allowing resistant strains to proliferate. The connection between digestive health and joint inflammation operates through multiple pathways. When the intestinal barrier becomes compromised, bacterial fragments and other inflammatory molecules can enter the bloodstream and activate immune cells throughout the body. These activated immune cells may then travel to joints and contribute to inflammation there. Additionally, the balance of bacterial species influences the types and amounts of inflammatory compounds circulating in the blood. Supporting digestive health through diet may therefore support joint health indirectly. By reducing the inflammatory load the immune system must manage and by improving the absorption of nutrients needed for tissue maintenance. The rhythm of repair, sleep and recovery, The body performs most of its maintenance work during sleep. While consciousness rests, cellular repair processes accelerate. Growth hormone, essential for tissue repair, is released in pulses during deep sleep. Protein synthesis increases. Damaged components are cleared from cells. New proteins are assembled and deployed to where they are needed. For joints, this nightly maintenance is essential. The cartilage that cushions bones has no direct blood supply and relies on movement during the day to bring in nutrients and remove waste. But the actual work of repairing damaged molecules and replacing worn components happens primarily during rest. When sleep is insufficient or poor quality, this repair work is incomplete, and the effects accumulate over time. The relationship between sleep and joint health is bidirectional. Poor sleep can increase sensitivity to pain, making joint discomfort feel more intense. Joint pain can interfere with sleep, creating a cycle where discomfort disrupts the very process needed for recovery. Breaking this cycle often requires addressing both sides of the equation, managing joint discomfort through the approaches discussed throughout this essay, and attending to sleep hygiene to support the body's natural repair processes. Sleep needs change with age, but the importance of quality sleep does not diminish. Older adults may sleep more lightly and wake more frequently, but the same principles apply, creating conditions that support restful sleep, including consistent timing, appropriate temperature, limited light and noise, and avoidance of stimulating activities before bed, allows the body to perform its nightly maintenance more effectively. The movement paradox. Stress is signal. Physical activity places stress on joints. Yet joints that are not used deteriorate faster than those that are used regularly. This apparent paradox resolves when stress is understood as a signal rather than simply a force. Mechanical stress on joints signals the body to maintain the tissues that support them. Without this signal, maintenance programs are downregulated and tissues weaken. Cartilage responds to loading by adjusting its composition and thickness. Within limits, cartilage that is regularly but reasonably loaded becomes more resilient. The cells within cartilage sense mechanical forces and adjust their activity accordingly, producing more matrix when forces are appropriate and reducing production when forces are absent. This is why prolonged immobilization after injury leads to cartilage thinning, and why resuming activity gradually rebuilds cartilage thickness over time. Bone responds similarly. The cells that build bone are stimulated by the forces applied during weight-bearing activity. When bones are regularly loaded, remodeling shifts toward building. When loading decreases, as during prolonged bed rest or sedentary periods, remodeling shifts toward breakdown. This is why physical activity that involves bearing weight, such as walking, helps maintain bone density, while non-weight-bearing activities like swimming, though excellent for other purposes, provide less bone-building stimulus. Muscle responds most dramatically to loading. Muscle fibers subjected to sufficient tension respond by increasing protein synthesis and growing stronger. This growth occurs not during the activity itself, but in the recovery period afterward, when the body repairs the microscopic damage caused by exertion and adds a little extra in anticipation of future demands. This is why progressive resistance training, where muscles are challenged with gradually increasing loads, produces continuing gains in strength even in later decades. The challenge for joint health is finding the right balance. Enough loading to signal maintenance without so much that damage exceeds repair capacity. This balance differs for each person based on their current joint condition, overall health, and history. Learning to read the body's signals, distinguishing between the discomfort of effort and the pain of damage, allows individuals to find their appropriate level of activity. The timing of nourishment, when matters along with what. The body operates on rhythms that influence how nutrients are processed. Digestive enzymes are produced in patterns that vary throughout the day. Insulin sensitivity, the efficiency with which cells take up glucose from the bloodstream, follows a daily rhythm, typically highest in the morning and declining through the evening. The timing of meals relative to these rhythms affects how nutrients are used. Protein timing may be particularly relevant for muscle maintenance. Research suggests that spreading protein intake across meals, rather than consuming most protein at a single meal, supports more consistent muscle protein synthesis throughout the day. Each meal containing adequate protein provides a signal for muscle maintenance that lasts several hours. When protein is concentrated in one meal, the signal is strong but brief, leaving long periods with minimal stimulation. For older adults, who may experience some resistance to the muscle-building signals from protein, this distribution becomes especially important. Consuming approximately 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal, rather than 15 grams at breakfast and 50 at dinner, may provide more consistent support for muscle maintenance throughout the day. The timing of other nutrients may also matter. Consuming calcium-rich foods throughout the day, rather than in a single large dose, may improve absorption and reduce the amount lost through urine. Spreading fluid intake across waking hours supports consistent hydration, which benefits joint lubrication and overall cellular function. The cumulative effect. Why consistency outweighs intensity? Perhaps the most important principle emerging from this exploration is the power of consistency. The body responds to what it receives regularly, not to occasional heroic efforts. A single day of perfect eating followed by weeks of neglect accomplishes little. A brief period of intensive exercise followed by months of inactivity provides no lasting benefit. What matters is what happens day after day, month after month, year after year. This is both discouraging and encouraging news. It is discouraging because it offers no shortcuts, no quick fixes, no dramatic interventions that will transform joint health overnight. Anyone promising such transformations is either mistaken or misleading. The body does not work that way. It responds slowly to consistent support and slowly to consistent neglect. Changes accumulate gradually, often below the threshold of perception, until one day you notice that stairs are easier or mornings are less stiff than they once were. It is encouraging because it means that small, sustainable changes, maintained over time, produce meaningful results. You do not need to completely transform your diet overnight. You do not need to begin an exercise program that leaves you exhausted and sore. You do not need to adopt practices that feel foreign or difficult to maintain. Small adjustments, consistently applied, accumulate into significant differences over months and years. The choice of which adjustments to make matters less than the fact of making them consistently. Adding a serving of fermented dairy to your daily routine provides protein, calcium, and beneficial bacteria. Including berries with that serving supplies vitamin C and antioxidants. Sprinkling seeds adds zinc and healthy fats. Each of these small additions, by itself, produces a modest benefit. Together, consistently, they create conditions in which the body can do its maintenance work more effectively. The integration of approaches. How strategies work together. The various strategies discussed throughout this essay do not operate in isolation. They interact, each supporting and amplifying the others. Protein supports muscle, and stronger muscles protect joints. Probiotics support digestive health, and a healthy digestive system absorbs nutrients more efficiently. Omega-3 fats support lubrication and reduce inflammation. And reduced inflammation allows repair processes to proceed more effectively. Calcium and vitamin D maintain bone, and healthy bones provide stable foundations for joints. Vitamin C enables collagen production, and collagen forms the structural framework of all connective tissues. This integration means that a comprehensive approach to supporting joint health is more than the sum of its parts. Each element makes the others more effective. Adequate protein provides the building blocks, but without the vitamins and minerals that enable their use, those building blocks cannot be properly assembled. Beneficial bacteria support nutrient absorption, but without the nutrients to absorb, their presence provides limited benefit. Physical activity signals maintenance, but without the raw materials for that maintenance, the signal cannot be fully answered. The practical implication is that attending to multiple aspects of health simultaneously produces results that no single intervention could achieve alone. This does not mean attempting to address everything at once in a way that becomes overwhelming. It means recognizing that small improvements in several areas, maintained consistently, work together to support the body's natural maintenance systems. The long view. Aging as continuous process. Aging is not something that happens suddenly at some advanced age. It is a continuous process that begins long before any noticeable changes appear and continues throughout life. The choices made in each decade influence the condition of the body in subsequent decades. The nutrients consumed today become the tissues of tomorrow. The physical activities performed this year shape the capacity for movement in years to come. This long view can be either daunting or liberating. It is daunting because it implies that the condition of your joints at 70 reflects choices made at 50, at 40, at 30. The effects of past decisions cannot be erased. But it is liberating because it implies that choices made today will shape your condition at 80, at 90, and beyond. The body you will inhabit in future decades is being built now, from the materials you provide and in response to the demands you place upon it. The goal is not to achieve some perfect state of health that will then be maintained indefinitely. The body does not work that way. It constantly changes, constantly adapts, constantly responds to the conditions it encounters. The goal is to create conditions that support the body's natural tendency toward maintenance and repair. Conditions in which the gradual changes of aging proceed as slowly and gracefully as possible. This is not a project with a finish line. It is not something you complete and then move on from. It is a way of living that continues for as long as you live. A daily practice of providing what the body needs to do its work. The rewards of this practice are not dramatic transformations, but gradual improvements. Small shifts in what feels possible. Subtle expansions of what you can do without discomfort or limitation. The practical path. Translating understanding into action. Understanding how the body maintains itself is valuable only insofar as it guides action. Knowledge that does not inform behavior produces no benefit. The challenge is translating the principles discussed here into sustainable practices that fit within an ordinary life. The first step is recognizing that perfection is not required. The body is remarkably resilient and forgiving. It does not demand that every meal be perfectly balanced or that every day include ideal activity. It responds to overall patterns, to what is generally true about your habits over time. A generally good diet, generally adequate activity, generally sufficient sleep produces generally good results. Occasional deviations cause no lasting harm. The second step is identifying small changes that feel manageable and sustainable. Adding a single serving of fermented dairy to your daily routine requires minimal effort but provides consistent benefits. Including a handful of berries with that serving adds antioxidants and vitamin C with no additional complexity. Sprinkling seeds adds minerals and healthy fats with almost no effort. Each of these small additions, by itself, produces modest benefit. Together, they create a foundation for better maintenance. The third step is recognizing that consistency matters more than intensity. A moderate change maintained for years produces far greater benefit than an extreme change abandoned after weeks. The goal is not to transform everything at once, but to establish patterns that can be sustained indefinitely. Slow progress that continues is better than rapid progress that stops. The fourth step is paying attention to how your body responds. No two individuals are exactly alike. What works well for one person may work less well for another. Learning to read your body's signals. Noticing how you feel after different foods, different activities, different patterns of rest, allows you to adjust your approach based on your unique needs and responses. The fifth step is patience. The body changes slowly. Improvements that occur over months and years are more lasting than those that occur overnight. Trusting the process. Continuing with consistent practices even when results are not immediately apparent allows the cumulative effects of good habits to gradually express themselves. The broader context. Health is integration. Joint health cannot be separated from overall health. The same factors that support joints also support the heart, the brain, the immune system, and every other organ and tissue. The protein that maintains muscle also maintains the structural proteins in blood vessel walls. The omega-3 fats that lubricate joints also support brain function and cardiovascular health. The probiotics that reduce inflammation in joints also support digestive health and immune regulation. This integration means that practices supporting joint health are not an additional burden, something extra to worry about beyond all the other health concerns demanding attention. They are part of a unified approach to maintaining overall function. The same daily choices that support your joints also support your heart, your brain, your digestion, your immune system. You are not addressing separate problems with separate solutions. You are providing your body with what it needs to maintain itself as an integrated whole. This perspective reduces the sense of overwhelm that can accompany health information. There is not a long list of separate things you must do for each part of your body. There is a shorter list of fundamental supports that benefit every system. Adequate protein, sufficient variety of vitamins and minerals, beneficial bacteria, appropriate physical activity, sufficient rest, meaningful engagement with life. These are not separate programs for separate problems. They are the basic requirements for a body to function well, applied consistently over time. The quiet confidence of informed patience. There is a certain peace that comes from understanding how the body works and what it requires. The anxiety of not knowing. The sense that health is mysterious and unpredictable gives way to something calmer. You understand that the body is not a machine that will inevitably break down, but a living system that will maintain itself as well as it can with whatever resources it has. Your role is not to control this system, but to support it, to provide what it needs, and then trust it to do its work. This is not passive acceptance of decline. It is active engagement in creating conditions for optimal function. It is showing up each day with the understanding that what you do matters, not dramatically, but cumulatively, not immediately, but over time. It is the quiet confidence of knowing that you are providing what the body needs, even when results are not immediately apparent, even when progress seems slow. The body you have carried through decades of living deserves this thoughtful attention. It has served you well, adapting to circumstances, recovering from challenges, continuing to function despite occasional neglect or abuse. It asks only what it has always asked: adequate fuel, appropriate use, sufficient rest. Provide these consistently, and it will continue to serve you as well as it can for as long as you live. This is not a promise of perfect health or unlimited years. No such promise can honestly be made. It is simply an observation about how living systems work. They maintain themselves when conditions support maintenance. They deteriorate when conditions do not. Your choices shape the conditions your body experiences. Understanding this connection and acting on that understanding with patience and consistency is the most sensible approach to living well within a body that has been in use for decades and will hopefully continue in use for decades more. The body you have inhabited for decades is not a machine destined to break down according to a fixed schedule. It is a living system, constantly rebuilding itself from the materials you provide, constantly responding to the demands you place upon it, constantly adapting to the conditions you create. The stiffness you feel in the morning, the slowness that has crept into your movements, the activities you have gradually abandoned. These are not commands from an unalterable fate. They are communications from a body doing its best with whatever resources it has been given. Change the resources, change the demands, change the conditions, and the communication changes as well. Not overnight, not dramatically, not in ways that defy the passage of time, but gradually, cumulatively, meaningfully. If these reflections have sparked a thought or raised a question you would like to explore further, consider sharing it in the comments. The Longevity Library exists not as a source of commands, but as a gathering place for those who wish to think more deeply about what it means to age well. If you have not yet subscribed, you may find value in doing so, as new volumes are added regularly to this growing archive. Until next time, remember that each day offers another opportunity to provide your body with what it needs to continue serving you well. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.